Welcome, everyone, to a different kind of doula. Today's guest is Bonnie Bizzell, CEO of BOANN, Health, Rest, and Support, which we are going to learn about. I had the pleasure of working with Bonnie at People's Memorial of Washington. And I have found Bonnie brings much joy and enthusiasm and creativity to the work that she does. She's been involved for over 15 years in business of helping others and with the advanced care planning in Washington State. She's worked for nonprofits and government. She was featured as a co-author in the British Medical Journal and the Journal American Medical Association and the New England Journal of Medicine. And she was the technical advanced care planning advisor in the short film Honoring Choices. She has also been on a very, very personal journey. And so let's get started, Bonnie. We're so thrilled to have you here.
Oh,
And
I'm delighted.
so what made you start BOANN, and what about that logo?
Oh, good. So BOANN actually started as this little kernel when I actually was training to be a death doula. And I learned that in Washington State, you can have a full body burial at sea. So you don't have to be cremated. You can go into the water, full burial. And I didn't see anyone doing that, providing that service. And I thought I would like to be able to do that someday. And then as things happen, I sort of put that aside because I was doing a bunch of other work. And then my dad died, and we hospiced him and he died. And afterwards, I took on the task of setting everything up. He was cremated. He wanted to be scattered on the water, preferably from the ferries, which you used to be able to do. You can't do that anymore. They stopped doing that during the pandemic, and I don't think they've picked it back up. And it was just overwhelming and frustrating. And I thought nobody should have to do this. Like, I'm doing all of this research and tending to my grief, to my mom's grief, just trying to put everything together. So the universe stepped in and gave me the opportunity to go on my own path. And I did, and I started BOANN, and the idea was like, okay, I'm going to help people do outdoor events, because you can scatter ashes in almost all of the national parks in the U.S., and most people don't know that. Washington State is very progressive in where you can scatter or leave ashes, and I said, I'm going to do that. And in talking to people, I expanded it from just water to like mountains and everything. Like, I was like, I'm going to just do this. And then my mom got sick, and I ended up hospicing her and taking care of that. In between, my husband also had a stroke. He's fine. You would never know. But, there was a lot of trauma. And then finally, on the tail end, I had gotten through the love and life celebration for my mom and my dad. We did that on their anniversary. Um, I had an ovarian cancer scare. And I had to go through 3 months of really sitting with my mortality, and then had major surgery, got all the bits and pieces removed. And after that surgery, I realized that I had a lot more to give than just helping people with outdoor events. I've been in patient and family centered care as an advocate for now 20 years. And I came out of surgery and I knew different things that I needed to do. I recognized how much people didn't know. Like, I was like, I'm lucky that I know this. I'm lucky that I can do this. Not just lucky, but privileged. I really sat with my privilege. And so I said, you know what? I need to do more than just offering events. So what I'll do is I will help people become what I like to call the CEO of their own healthcare system, which is themselves. And I will also support the people who are doing the doula work, because I'm building all these tools. I'm doing all of this stuff that might help other people create a high touch value, customer service value, might help them ease what they're doing a little bit. And so that's how I got to health and rest and support. And I really think it's a continuum. Healthcare is self-care, and self-care is healthcare. Death care is healthcare, and healthcare is death care. And self-care is death care, and death care is self-care. Like it all makes sense to me, at least. It is all interconnected. And so what you see from that logo, which I actually designed very early and didn't realize how well that would take me through all of this sort of blooming, is I worked hard with a friend of mine from high school who lives in Germany, who does this sort of work all the time. And I really wanted it to be a circular logo, because one of the key parts of BOANN is community, is like, how do we do community? How do we support other patients in the community? How do we support the doulas in the community? How do we support the grievers who are doing their own transformation in the community? And so I wanted a circular logo. And so what we ended up with was this, and I love it. It sort of represents the mountains and the sky on the top and the water on the bottom, but it's also sort of this like reflective logo of community and sort of like what I call the woo-woo. So if you're spiritual, there's something a little bit more there. And I love that it's open, that it's an open circle. It's not a closed circle, because community is not and should not be closed. It is an open circle. And then what eventually happened is I have these 3 different levels, and I have 3 different levels in my logo. So it became this sort of really resonant thing for me about what BOANN needs to be. I mean, I don't want to get too much into it, but we're named after the Celtic river goddess who brought prosperity and a future to Ireland, and what we want to do and what we're doing. And I say we, as a I still think of BOANN as sort of an entity beyond just me. Um, we want to bring that empowerment. We want to bring that prosperity to everyone. And so that's sort of a very long explanation of all those things.
May I share your logo?
Yeah, please.
I just looked it up. There it is.
Yeah.
It's beautiful.
Thank you.
Especially after you explained it. And I just was like, wow, that's so powerful.
Yeah, it means a lot to me. And I specifically wanted the gold look. I know that sounds weird, but that's just what came to me. So,
You know, it looks like a labyrinth.
it does, but it's open, right?
It's open on both sides. I love that.
So you can come in and go out in different ways.
So tell me, the CEO of your healthcare, you mentioned it. I want to know more about that.
So, when I walk into healthcare, I think I own my healthcare. And, people without insurance, without employer insurance, are likely to spend about $700,000 over their lifetime. Of course, that's probably going to go up, right? The way we're seeing the trajectory of costs. So, this body is like it's like $1 million business for real. And people are going to see over 18 doctors in their lifetime. I mean, there's just a lot that goes into it. And so I started thinking about CEOs, and what do CEOs do? Well, what they do is they run the whole show. They look at everything, and they are the ones who are going to make the decisions, but they're going to pull in the experts. And they're going to listen to the experts, and maybe they'll agree and maybe they won't, but they're not going to cede their authority of making those decisions to someone else. They're going to make those decisions. And if they bring in an expert who doesn't really fit, they're not going to stick with them. They're going to change it, and they're going to come to meetings prepared, and they're going to have their data, and they're going to advocate. They're going to tell people what's important to them. And what I have learned in patient advocacy is that the person who knows their health the best is that patient. It's that individual, because they live in that body. doctors may have similar experiences, or other healthcare professionals may have experienced something similar, but they are not the same person. And everybody, we've seen this, reacts differently to different things. So I know what is comfortable for me. And, I have to take ownership of that. And if I can be a CEO, if I can come in and say, I've been writing down these things and I know what my body is doing. If my board includes a bunch of doctors and healthcare professionals and family members, or however you want to call it, my healthcare team, they can listen to that and then understand what's important to me and understand how I can navigate that space. But ultimately, I'm making that decision. Ultimately, I'm living with those results, whether the stock goes up or down. And so I really like this idea of people saying, hey, you know what? I already have $1 million business. It's my healthcare system. This is my healthcare system. So you need to treat me like I'm an equal when we're talking about decision making, because it is me. Does that make sense?
Yeah, I love that you're empowering patients to take control, because how often um, do people just do what their doctors say because they know? I watched it with my mom and dad during my dad's illness. I'm like, no, Dad, you know.
Yeah.
So I
Yeah.
love that.
Yeah. Be the CEO of your own healthcare system.
Mhm.
Go in
Now, if
for
I could just get everyone paid like a CEO.
Yeah, absolutely. Oh, I just love this. I'm right now looking at your website. Can you speak to the rest piece of the website? I'm interested in the outdoor final rest.
Yeah.
Yeah. So, I'm a firm believer that we need to respect the living and the dead, and that it's great if the people plan where they want to spend their eternal rest, right? Whatever you believe, um, you know, people who survive, your loved ones, are going to have to do something. You either going to have to, they'll either bury you or cremate you. They might do a full burial at sea, maybe someday. Um, but I think what happens is that people don't really know how to go ahead and do that. Um, I there are a lot of things that I learned with my dad's burial, like exactly how high not to throw or scatter ashes, like, and so the idea is that let's let them rest where they really love, where they found joy, essentially. Because I think in a way that brings joy to the family. I know my dad loved Tramp Harbor on Vashon. He took some great photos of eagles there. So that is a good place. Or maybe your loved one really liked hiking up in Mount Rainier and liked the wildflowers up there. Okay. Well, let's do something meaningful. So it's a treasured memory. It's not this sort of rote sort of, okay, we need to do something. Let's just do this. And I hear from when I talk to people about the rest stuff, a lot of people come to me and they'll hear what I'm doing and they'll say, I still have my mom's ashes in my closet. I just don't know what to do.
Yeah.
And my whole thing is like, well, let's start from a place of joy. What did your mom love? Maybe your mom loved cooking. So can we not cook her, obviously, but can we do something like have a celebratory buffet before we, scatter her ashes or bury her ashes or whatever you want to do? But I think starting from the place of joy and then blooming out from there is the way to go. And I think a lot of people, certainly in the Pacific Northwest, really find joy in the outdoors.
Yeah.
Yes.
So let's encourage that. And now, we have composting. That's soil. Let's figure out some place we can make that meaningful. Where can we bury that? And I think that that's really important, because then when I think of my dad or I think of my mom, I think of Tramp Harbor, and I think of taking pictures of eagles. Every time I see an eagle, I think of both of them. And that's beautiful, because that gives me a place that I can think about mentally,
Mhm.
that I can go to, and I can still talk to them. Because a lot of times with scattering ashes, then what do you do? How do I, at least for the gravesite, you can go and spend time at the gravesite. So how can we make these meaningful places resonate on a deeper level and help with that grief process?
Yeah, I love that. I had a colleague whose mom gave instructions that when she dies, the whole family has to fly to Hawaii and get rid of her body there.
Mhm.
And I remember he was so mad. It disrupted his life quite a bit. But he came back and he went, that was amazing.
Yeah.
That was just amazing. And she paid for everyone's
Oh,
airline. She
lovely.
had left money. Yeah. So it just made me think of that.
Colleen,
Well,
you
and
remember?
it's great. Oh, sorry.
No, go ahead, Bonnie.
I was going to say, I think it's great that it disrupted his life, because
Yep.
we often don't let grief or bereavement disrupt our life in
Absolutely.
Right.
today's.
That's the
And we
point
need to.
I wanted to support you with on this. We believe we support the phrase death is not a medical, but a community event. And I noticed that you really support community and are interested in having community understand how grief is important. And I wonder if you could say some words on that, because in Kathleen's area is grief, so she has a lot on that.
Well, one of the things, so when I started BOANN, and I was just doing the outdoor thing, one of the things I wanted to do was figure out how I could support the grievers, like beyond just the event, beyond showing up, helping them do stuff so they feel supported. I used to joke that it's like a wedding planner except for funerals, but beyond that, how do I support, that transformation, that marriage to grief? And so one of the things I did is I actually became a partner with They're now called Help Texts. And what they do is they do grief support through texting. And the reason I like them is because if I'm grieving and I get a subscription to Help Text, I sign in and it gets pretty detailed. So I get very specific support. It's not like, very reminders and just help throughout that's specifically towards my condition with my grief. But I can also say, like, oh, I want these 3 people. I want you 3 on this ticket with me. And so what will happen is that then you 3, I think it's only 2, so I might be exaggerating. 2 of you would get texts on how to support me in my grief. So what that does is that creates an understanding of how to support others beyond the, like, call me if you need me, or don't be afraid to, people are afraid to ask about the people who died, and so I loved that idea. And then it's sort of like taking it and making it bigger and bigger. And I loved that idea of creating a community that could actually support. And then if I've supported someone else, then I have a better understanding when I go through it. So, yeah. Shout out to Help Text. So there you go.
I love help texts. A friend of mine said she was afraid to use it because she was in such grief, but she said when she finally did, she's like, it was like a gentle feather stroking her, saying, everything's going to be okay.
Yeah, I love that you don't have to talk to someone for it.
Yeah.
Like that is a real barrier for some people in grief. They don't want to talk about it.
Can we pivot to support?
Yeah.
And you like the high touch for doulas and advocates, and can you talk about that?
Yeah. So I think high touch is an idea that's like usually sort of associated, I think, with luxury brands, right? Like you go into that special store, they know who you are. Maybe it's like a hair salon. They know your name. They know what kind of drink you want. Do you want wine or tea? And, and then they like send you a birthday email or whatever. And what doulas and advocates do is naturally high touch because you are getting into some of the most intimate times of people's lives, and they are trusting you wholly to be there for them. And so one of the things that BOANN is doing, and we're launching this Monday, is a way to help doulas be high touch or advocates be high touch without them having to like hold it in their brain, right? So what I do is I support them. I have something called Social Media Simplified, or SMS. I thought that was really clever. It's probably not as clever as I think, but which provides a syndicated marketing, like images that people can use on their social media. Comes with provided text, including alt text, which is huge because if you're not doing alt text, you're missing a huge segment of society. So that, the idea is that a doula or an advocate could sit down once a month, upload these so they have a consistent presence, and then, do their own sort of thing on their own. Like they read an article and they send it out and stuff. Or another thing we're offering is, dates are very important. And I found this in my own business. When I sent, I had a client and I sent, as good practice towards the year anniversary, I sent a card and I just wrote on that card and I said, hey, I bet this is probably going to be a tough time. I'm thinking about you. This is what I remember about that event that really stuck with me. And it was a positive memory, right? And I just wanted to let you know that I was thinking about you and just sent that off. Well, immediately, like within a day, I had an email in my inbox who said, and it was from this client who said, we've had more deaths and we'd love to have you more. Can I'm so glad you reached out. And at that time I was going through my ovarian cancer scare. So I couldn't support people. I just couldn't. But what she needed support in was something that I could easily give to her in an email. Like I was like, oh, if you really liked the program, then this is what you need. Here's something for you to help, just sort of get through it. And I think it's important that if we're in their families with someone so intimately, that we just don't let go of those bonds. And so my idea is like, not everybody wants to hold on to those dates. I'll hold on to those dates for you. Not everybody has the time to write the card. I'll write the card. Now, if you write it, it's going to be a better card. But I can write a card and say, we've been thinking about you. We know this is a tough time. Thank you for trusting us. And something as simple as that, just around the anniversary, means the world to people because people forget that people are still grieving.
Yeah.
So
that's so important. I have a friend that had a stillborn child. I've said this on the show before, but our children were due like 10 days apart. And it's 28 years in April, but she's like, Maureen, you're the only one that remembers, and you always send a card or you always reach out. And I said, well, I have my reminder of my son. But that's one thing that's so hard is that life goes on for everyone else, rightfully so, but it's still painful for the person. Yeah. And so what a gift that is, Bonnie, that you're giving.
I want a community that feels supported. That's really what it comes down to. I just want a community that feels supported in health and in rest and in action, right? Like the doulas, and they need so much support. I mean, I see what they do. And I trained as a doula, but I knew that I couldn't do that. So for family members, yes, but so yeah. What else?
I love that because one of the things that I think about is anything that brings up a memory is to reach out to someone, you know? So what I notice is, I'm going to go visit, Disneyland, and, I have lots of memories of my dad there. And so I'll send it to all my siblings, and, there's just certain things. And so it makes me think about how to live life better too, about
Yes.
connecting with those who are alive. And so when someone goes through my head, check in,
Yeah.
don't put it off. But if they came to mind, check in with them.
It can be as easy as a text, just
Mhm.
saying, thinking of you, heart emoji, heart emoji. Like,
Yeah.
I love
It's
those.
so simple now, and that little thing means so much.
Mhm.
Okay, so I want to share when you were talking about scattering and going someplace that was meaningful. Like you can go back to, I can't remember the name of the harbor.
Tramps
Yeah.
Harbor.
And there's, you can think of your dad, and Colleen and I went to Terracon, and there was a woman from Colorado who had done natural organic reduction with her husband. But at the life celebration, she gave out jars of his compost, and she said, "Go." Do you remember that, Colleen? Go
Yeah.
scatter it somewhere. So he's on mountaintops in Colorado. He's all over where everyone
Lovely.
shared a memory with him. And I thought, what a beautiful thing.
Isn't that gorgeous? That is what I would call gorgeous. Yeah.
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 Just knowing that feels supportive,
Mm.
because it's so connecting. And then you have your community
Yeah.
and you're being a role model, really, about how to, stay connected afterward. But that real quick service, the real quick bereavement leave from work, all those things can send the message that we need to be over it. And it's just not the case.
No, my mother died over a year ago, about 18 months ago, not even quite. And I still will just be sitting there, and out of the blue, I'll just start crying and just be like, wow, and I'm fortunate. Like, I don't have to get up and go to work necessarily. I mean, work is here. I don't have kids, so I don't have to worry about feeding them. I have a dog and I have to worry about treats, but I mean, I just know that I sit from an incredible place of privilege. And so my hope is that the more we build a community that is responsive and respectful,
Mhm.
the more likely we are able to extend that beyond just that, 3 days off.
Mhm.
And you can't even go cross country in 3 days,
Mhm.
really.
Mhm.
So, I'm hopeful. I'm an optimist, right? Like, I'm a practical optimist, because most of my life I had a convertible, but I had a hardtop convertible because I live in Seattle. So I always believed the sun would come out, but I was ready for the rain.
Oh, that's
I
great.
love that. Well, Bonnie, how can people find you, and what's the last word of wisdom you'd want to get, but how can they get in touch with you?
Well, you can go to my website, and there's a form, or there's a place that says my address. It's always here at boann.net is the main address. So you can definitely get in contact with me here. If you're watching this and you're a professional, I highly recommend to reach out to me, or at least to just say, hey, just let me know, because like I said, we're rolling out the social media simplified. There's co-branding. So like, I've built patient journals and stuff so that you could co-brand and hand them out. And for the social media simplified, anyone who mentions win-win in the coupon code will get 10% off.
Mhm.
And if 20 people mention win-win, all of those people will get 20% off. So the idea is, like, how can I make this affordable, and at the same time buy the treats for my dog, which is important.
I love that. So that's always at BOANN, spelled
Always here,
BOANN.
always here.
Always
Like
here.
people are always here. No matter if they're gone, they're always here.
Yes. Always here at BOANN, BOANN.net. Great. We'll put
.net.
that-
Yes. Did I say .com? I
No,
gotta
you
get
said
better at that.
No. And the website is boann.net,
Mhm.
because I think
Mhm.
your website's fabulous.
Thank you. Thank you. I'm still working on it. So if you see misspellings or things don't jive, you can always also email me that, and I'm happy to say thank you.
Well, Bonnie, we have so appreciated having you on our show today, and we look forward to having you back in the future to share more success about BOANN. But you can always find us at gentlepassagedoulacollective.com, and we'll be back next week with another episode of a different kind of doula. So thank you so much.